But from this point on, what we will do is have a meeting.
At that
The
meeting,
next
I'm saying, don't let him tell you what he's
Well, no,
gonna
no,
do.
no.
You can
What it
definitely
is
tell
is
him
just a
what he
fact-finding
needs to do.
mission. We want to find out where he stands on the issues. We want to see where the EPA is, and hopefully we can have someone from the administration so we can get to the bottom of it to make sure that the needs of our residents are met. And I think that's the only fair way to do it. And we can sit and discuss it and assume what could have been done, what should have been done, but we'll have to just have that conversation with parties that are involved.
And that's gonna be a public meeting.
To get straight to the horse and the source out there. That's what we need to do.
Please don't hold me on that
Thank you.
2-year time frame. I just threw that out there. But he does have a certain amount of time that he can let that material pile up, and that's per the law. We can't change that.
Thank you, Council.
I don't think nobody's trying to change it. I think you're trying to deal with what it is and get a resolution for it. I think that's what you're trying to do.
So the best way to get that resolution, and you're right, is to go sit down and talk with him and understand what it is he's doing, understand his business model, so he's not gonna separate materials out from one house. He's gonna wait till he gets this much and then come separate it out and get it off the property. That's just a business decision, right? And when you look at business, we sold him the land to have the business that he has. So there are certain rules and restrictions he has to abide by anyway. So I don't want you to think that we can just go and tell him what he's gonna do business-wise. That would be like telling Heron Road they couldn't close.
If it confines,
First of all,
yes, it does.
First of all, I'm not trying to tell anybody.
Yes, you can
what-
tell
no.
how they're gonna operate their
If you-
business in the city.
If
You have that authority.
If you have done your due diligence and you signed a contract, you know what he's going to do. What you have to do is monitor it and make sure that everything is up to par. It's like anything else. You can put in any kind of legislation and law that you want. If it's not monitored and kept up with, it's not going to work. You got a lot of things on the book here that you're not monitoring and seeing what's going on with it. So, hey, that ain't no different. Nobody trying to tell him what to do. But at the time, he had the city under control because we needed the money. They was pushing. That's it. That's what it was.
Well, does anyone else have any questions or any comments?
I think that the conversation has been great.
Yeah.
I think the next phase, next step, you're gonna take a meeting with the owner and bring other representatives in, is the right thing to do, and I support it.
Okay, well then,
I
we'll
support that.
we postpone this matter until we're able to, until we're able to meet and set up a meeting between the EPA, we can have a representative from the EPA, Arkle facility. Yes, Mr. Holmes?
Yeah, well, it is all set up.
Huh?
Because y'all telling us that Mr. King already told you. EPA and everybody else been out there. Everything is cool. The city is liable for what that man's doing because the city gave him authority to do what he's doing. If the law came down and come down against the city, if y'all try to do something about it, as long as he complying to what he said he was gonna do.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
That's a fact.
Thank
I'm
you
just
for
telling
that.
all
Yes.
this other rhetoric don't mean nothing.
Thank you for that.
Because I was told by another individual that this man got a complete contract.
You do.
And what he doing,
What does
as
it
long as he
contract
don't
say?
violate the stuff that he got in there, ain't nothing y'all can do.
I
He
tell
can
you
pile
what
that stuff
about
up the
you, Mr.
hill.
Holmes.
Well,
You're
that's
right
what,
with
you
me
know,
now.
Mr. Holmes, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna postpone this matter until we can.
Ain't nothing y'all gonna be able to do.
Yes, there is something to do because
Okay,
in a
so
black
don't
in the
do it
city,
then.
you can get something to do. You
What you gonna do?
Okay,
Okay,
guys.
Mr. Holmes,
If you
please.
think about this,
You have the-
if you think about this, would Shaker Heights have on their main thoroughfare, Van Agen Boulevard, a big garbage dump? I mean, Euclid is our main corridor.
Thank you.
I mean, why would we do that? University Circle is coming this way, they're tearing down houses. We got houses down all the way to Superior and even beyond. I mean, it's looking better. This is gonna bring business. But, you know, who wants to live next to a trash dump on Euclid Avenue? Are you kidding me? We need to be proud of Euclid Avenue and not have a dump there. Whoever came up with that idea to put a dump on Euclid Avenue, you know, needs to have their head examined.
Well,
You know.
examine the 5 people that signed for him to do it.
Okay, so,
Euclid Avenue, a dump on Euclid Avenue? Are you kidding?
They gave them the authority to do it, man.
They needed the money, so they were just desperate, I guess, for the money.
Well, some people don't shoot somebody for some money.
okay,
But see, Madam Chairman,
yes.
I just, as I
You can't break the
said,
contract, old man.
No, you can't.
excuse me, you can't break a contract. If, let me be with you on what you're talking
Okay,
about.
Mr.
As I'm speaking to you, get the contract and see what the contract says. And if it's not in there for a dump, he had violated the contract. And then you have probable cause right there to move him, and then if he calls it something unsightly, and it is unsightly in this bill, he's causing an unsightly situation. You have the authority. It rests with this city. You have the authority to do that. So don't listen to what somebody, you don't have no authority. You let somebody come in your house. You let, I'll just use this as an example. You let somebody come in your house and take over and tell you what to do in your house?
Yeah.
No, you don't do that.
Oh, shit.
No, you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mays. I move that we postpone this until we're able to have a meeting with,
Well, why don't your Ohio Mayor that represent the city and get him to do it? That's what we do. I'll make a motion to Ohio Mayor.
until we are able to have representatives from the EPA, the administration, and ARCO.
You want to be funny, I'm speaking.
Oh, you say you know.
Anybody have a
I
second?
know. Anytime you violate a contract, you can
Postpone until we can get the
You don't know what the
representatives.
contract says?
They just read.
Lawson intercede?
No,
No, you wouldn't do anything?
we have a law to regulate.
Okay, all right.
Well, supposedly. But she don't know.
Can I get a second?
Second,
Okay,
it's table.
let's table now.
Great discussion, though.
Goodness. All right, next up is the Helen S. Brown Center. Now, this is something Councilman King has been working on for some time. I was able to visit the center, talk to Pastor Prue directly, and there are some issues that have come up around the Helen S. Brown Center. So I'll let you have the floor on that so you can expound upon that regarding the elephant in the room.
Helen S. Brown. Right? It's under Reese. Reese gave East Cleveland and his church. Pastor Prue. Now, I could go on and on what I have for it, but I'd really like to hear from our colleagues as to, you know, their opinions on it and, you know, what
Well, here's my concern.
their concerns, yes.
Yeah, Pastor Prude has said, and I wasn't at your last meeting, but it's some dialogue that I've had with him that he's put money into fixing the building up. And my concern is he hasn't followed the proper process. Getting certified people to do the work, going through Bombalis to make sure everything going through our city department that deals with that to make sure that we got the right people doing the work. Okay, I think Pastor Pruitt has used some people in his congregation that may know some plumbing and may know some electrical, may know something like that. But the process is they have to be certified. And we have a building department that's supposed to deal with that. And I don't know if he's met those requirements. I also know that we talk about the city being strapped for money, and he's supposed to be paying some, it's a lease, right? He's supposed to be paying how much?
$2,000.
$2,000 Has he paid the $2,000? I don't know. I know, and my question is, and I say this because I'm very sensitive about churches, and my thing is, church is a business, and I don't know if he could, at this point, pay the money. So now he's invested, not through the proper process, but he's put work in the church. I will say, and I had this conversation with him, that over the last 10 to 15 years, we put over $500,000 in that facility, even though there's problems we have because we looked out for the seniors. Okay? So you got an issue of him going through the proper procedure and process, and does he have the money to meet his requirements? Let's say he doesn't. So what is the option? What must be done? Wheeler is, do we give him more time? Or number one, has he gone through the proper process? We need to check with the city to see if that's the case. And I think what bothers me is not proved is that some of this comes under administration, King. Some of this has to be enforced. We don't do the day-to-day operation. I work a full-time job now. I'm blessed to be working. So I can't check on this. I can't check on that. But anybody coming in the city has to go through a process. Any city, any municipality. So I don't totally blame him for that. If our city has been so negligent and so cavalier that they're not on top of these kinds of things, something needs to be paid. Right now, he's caught in the middle. He's done the work. No one told him he couldn't do the work. No one told him he had to do this, from what I'm picking up. So we got some issues here. We got some real issues. Okay? Now he's there. I've been to his church one time. The sanctuary is nice and all like that. He's proud to be there. But can he pay the $2,000? Did he go through the proper process and procedure? Was it enforced by the administration? Was it enforced by the departments that deal with that with the city? I think not. So we got some issues here. So now he's there. He's having his church there on a Sunday and other things that he's doing. But he's had people do work. I don't know if he's expected to work. I don't know if these people are regular contractors that come through. It's just so many issues around this that falls on the administration. Okay? So now he's there. So, I struggle I struggle with this situation because I think he's a decent guy. I think he's done what he was able to do because nobody really checked him about it. Okay? So what do you do? So that's my concern.
Well, the first thing I believe that needs to happen is we need to get the facts to find out everything. What proper procedure are you referring to, and what proper procedure that he did not adhere to. I'm hearing things about
building permits,
permits and things like that.
Right. That's what
However, also.
Well, let me say this, and not to cut you off. Since you're chairing this, and we got time. This next meeting, let's get, just like we get the answers to ARCO, let's get the answers to this. To be fair to him.
Definitely.
Okay.
And we
All right.
already have
Okay.
some of those answers, but
All right.
But yeah, so we're dealing with a proper procedure, and then you brought up the rent being paid and his ability to do so.
Mhm.
I also toured the facility, like you said,
Okay.
and met with him, went over the finances that he stated, and brought that to attention to King, because I know you work very closely with him. So yeah, that's definitely an issue, two issues that we need to bring up. And also, I toured the basement, and there's a question as far as what's going on in the basement of the Helen S. Brown Center. I see that he's rehabbed the top. The downstairs it's a dungeon-like. It's leaking water.
black mold.
Old documents from the city. It's like a city warehouse with old documents and civil dockets and things like that. And so that's another question that I would want to bring to the table. But I do want to point this out, that if he hadn't been in there, of course, and nothing was being done with that building at that time, and hasn't been in quite some time. So he had let me know that the city did not actually turn off the water in that building. And what eventually happened was when he went in there, the pipes busted.
Mhm.
Totally busted. So there's lack of upkeep from the city initially. So when he went in, his estimates for the original renovation, whether you believe that his original estimate was far less than what it should have been, it was less than what he expected to spend. In rehabbing, and you're right, he is running a business, so he has to be able to conduct service so he can recoup some of the loss or some of the money that he invested into the place. But I want us to keep in mind that if Pastor Prude had not sought out the Helen S. Brown, we don't know who else would have sought it out. And as of right now, it is being occupied. It is still a city building. So I do think that that is a positive. And of course, with the issue with permits and things like that, I think that's something that can be very easily settled. But I think we need to get in and, like you said, find out what the facts are. So that's all I would have to say about that.
And I want to say this, and then I'm just very shortly, and I don't want to be beating up on people or
Say
whatever,
about the
but I
money,
need to say this.
When it came in.
When we had these committee meetings, this is the nuts and bolts of what we do. When we go have a council meeting, we go through the motion because we know what we're going to do. Whenever we had these meetings, someone from the administration, someone connected to what you put on your agenda should be here. And that's not happening. So it creates another meeting where if we would have people to come to answer this, okay, just like ARCO, and I didn't say this, but I say this, I feel that Mr. Wright feels the only person he needs to respond to is the mayor.
Well, the mayor was at the last meeting.
Okay, I'm just saying it. So, when you have the next meeting on Pastor Prude and Helen S. Brown, we said Helen S. Brown, we need to have all the key players there. Okay.
Well, that is a requirement, that is a requirement, but at the same time, we can't forcibly require someone, we can't forcibly make the mayor come in as far as.
No, I didn't say the mayor, someone that's in that department. The mayor delegates. He runs the city, he delegates. Someone in that department to come respond to this.
All meetings,
What's the law?
Right.
all meetings, the law director and the mayor
Yeah,
must
okay.
be here.
Madam Chair,
Wait a
wait a minute. Madam Chair, I have the lease here.
Okay.
And the lease says that the leasee must comply with the law, bring it up to par and code and so forth and so on. That is what is supposed to have been happening. Now, when he came here and we put him on the agenda, Pastor Prude was coming here to waive the $2,000 for 6 months. And when I started asking Pastor Prude the question about the contractors and so forth and so on, he went around that and started telling me about who did what and how much money he put in and this and that and the other. I'm not against anybody. I'm not against churches. We got a church on every corner. So I'm not against churches. But the leaseor, which is the city, was negligent. Because we got a bunch of people having church on Sunday morning that should not be there because you have not had it inspected. No one inspected nothing. I went down to, and I'm going to tell you what I did. The next day after we had that meeting, I went down and Barbara Johnson looked up. She said, there's nothing in here about Pastor Prude and his church. I went around the corner to the director of community development, which is Mr. Leach. There's nothing in the computer about Pastor Prude and his church. Talked to the law director, brought her down, and she went back up and got the original lease, which was signed. Not even the fire department has inspected that facility up there. Mr. Bombalis, who is the engineer, we just saw him out there. He wasn't supposed to be here that particular day, but for some reason, he was here. And I talked to Mr. Bombalis, and I said, Mr. Bombalis, I said, why haven't you all taken Mr. Prude's church, his Apostle Prude, I'm sorry, Apostle Prude's church into consideration and went up there and inspected that facility? He said, I didn't know anything about it, not anything. It's just like he's in there, nobody knew it, that he was in there from the administration. But the administration signed this lease. So my thing is that the leaseor, which is us, and the leasee, both are negligent. And the law director said she made sure that Apostle Prude had insurance on that facility. If that facility burns down today or tomorrow, or burned down at that particular time, it is not insured because nothing had been inspected. And who is responsible for that catastrophe if it takes place? The leaseor. Now, I'm not saying anything about, this ain't about God. It ain't about the church. It's about following what you're supposed to do and following the code. Nobody goes into anything without occupancy permit. Where is that? And the law director stood there herself in front of me and Mr. Leach and said, yes, he is in violation, and we're going to have to do something about that. Now, when they go before the zoning board, what is it?
Board of Zoning Appeals.
Yeah. He's supposed to be instructed on what he should have and when he has to have it and who should be doing it. I talked to Pastor Prude. He called me on the way to Baltimore to see my daughter. And he said to me, well, I didn't know what to do. I said, Pastor Prude, I said, I'm going to tell you, if your trustees and your deacons of that church and all y'all had a problem, they would come to you and ask. He said, well, I would hope they would come to me and ask. But Pastor Prude did not seek out what he was supposed to do. So I'm saying that we have an obligation to deal with this situation. I'm not talking about being a nice guy, being a man of the cloth and all of that, because we know that. And I'm very sensitive. But Pastor Prude didn't come here to say, when he came here that day, to say, I don't know what the rules and regulations are. Can somebody help me? Because I need help. He came here to say that I don't have 6 months of $2,000. I'm not so much worried about the money as I was worried about the predicament that his flock, so to speak, or his parishioners, so to speak, is in between when he moved in there and this past Sunday that nobody stopped him from going in there. He said to us he don't have nowhere to go. Now, coming back to the counselor.
Excuse me, I have a question to clarify. So you're saying that he wanted, according to you, he wanted...
No, according to all of us.
No, I'm saying the 6 months of rent, you're saying he wanted that
Waived.
waived?
Yep.
Yes, ma'am. Right there.
That's what he wants.
And what I'm saying also is that, according to you, you're saying that the facility sat there and was empty, okay? Pastor Prude was over there in another church, wanted to have his own church, And when he found out that there was a facility that he could do something in, that's what he wanted to do. So it was a win-win for both the city and Pastor Prue, because now he has his own church. But anytime, and going back to ARCO or whatever, you gotta be legal, and he's not legal. The fire department has not inspected that place. No one has inspected that place. It don't have to be a fire. Somebody could fall down and break their leg and sue the city. So all I'm saying is that we need to be more, and I hate to use my colleague's word, more cognizant about what is taking place, and not let emotion get in the way. Because emotions will take you, trip you out, and therefore you will be saying, yes, this is a minister. He's a nice guy. But the nice guy didn't do what was correct. And don't tell me he doesn't know. If he worked closely with a businessman, my colleague, vice president, okay, then he knows. I don't know how he got in there, but he knows.
I was under the assumption, see, when I talked to him, I didn't know that he never stated to me that he wanted the 6 months wait, that he wanted some type of easement, but I wasn't at the, review.
And I told him.
So, okay.
And I'm the one who suggested the 6 months.
Oh.
Again, right? When he came in, and we could check the minutes for this, when he came in, I believe he asked for some leniency in regards to the amount of money he spent. Now, and thank you for having this on your agenda. This is something I've been working on since early last summer, right? Call this my baby. I worked on the negotiations with him. I wrote up the lease. I wrote up the first addendum to the lease. I had the second addendum to the lease with me now. Initially, when we walked through there, right, we could see the leak in the basement. We could see a number of the other issues, electrical, not being able to figure it out. And it was just, and keep in mind that this place had been closed since somewhere around Thanksgiving the prior year. Right? No one basically had been in there during that time, but it was up and running. At the time it was closed. It was closed because of no money. It wasn't closed because of violations. But we were told that the heat wasn't working in there, wasn't working properly, couldn't heat up the whole building. We were told that when they shut it down, but it was not shut down because of violations. It was shut down because of money. We couldn't pay for it. We couldn't pay for the employees.
So the violations that currently that they're speaking of were already, there were violations there prior to Pastor Prue having it when it was up and running for the seniors.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
So yes. So when we went through there, with the chief of staff, and he identified a number of the things that was of concern that needed to be fixed. We also went through there with the chief of the service department, who also identified some things that need to be fixed and things that need to be addressed. And collectively, we all came up with a number, less than 10,000. Let's just say that number, less than 10,000. Now the pastor had kept me in the loop as far as, the rehab during the summer. Hey, this is going to cost us more than we thought. We're running into problems here. And again, we couldn't figure out how to cut the lights on in some of the areas. If you've been in there, there's multiple areas, multiple panels, right? The water was a shamble. We couldn't figure out the water. Pipes were leaking. And we all know the dangers of leaving a building unoccupied over the winter months. It wreaked havoc on the building. Now, when this was brought to my attention about the permits and all that, it was definitely an oversight on a number of people's fault, including my own, right? And I guess being so excited to work on the lease and help the administration out, because even going back to when we were running for council, city need help, we don't have resources, so we need people on council who can step in and step up and do some of these things. So I negotiated. I wrote the lease, right? I wrote it, gave it to the law director. She went through it legally, right? Whatever she changed, and now it's a legal document. So basically, I did the rough draft, right? So feeling good. So I overlooked the permits. What is he talking about? Jesus. So I may have overlooked the part about pulling permits. Now keep in mind, right? I talked to Pastor Prue along the way, so I know he was running the problems. Electrical, plumbing, he had to bring the sewer people out, he had to bring the water people out. I talked to him recently. He said, yes, I did use certified vendors. So we are in the process of righting this whole ship. And what happens, and what we need to happen from a council perspective, when we find something, Councilman Martin, we need to bring it back to the body and say, listen, we need to address this. There may be some issues here. Instead of going to the news, picketing, writing fancy letters, we need to bring it back in front of us. Hey, look, how can we right this ship, right? It's not as bad of a fix as we think, right? Because
Well, if the city's been operating that building with the seniors in it for prior years and constable violations, and nothing's changed except for the fact that he's trying to update it. That means that the city has been operating that building with the knowledge, council and the administration with the knowledge that it wasn't up to code or up to par.
Yeah, but you
but
got
it was never inspected. We're not inspecting our own buildings, right? So
But you
what
got it
happens
in the
because,
lease.
excuse me.
No,
what
you got it
happens
in the lease,
is-
King.
Can I finish?
Yeah, you can
I can
finish, but you
finish
got
after
it in
you
the
finish,
lease.
because
Okay.
you're Barbara Thomas. Go right ahead, I'm sorry. Been
Okay,
interrupting
then
you.
let me say it.
Mhm.
It's in the lease.
What's in the lease?
All that, the codes and violations must be brought up to code if you're going in there.
Now, that's part of the lease, right? And I wrote that lease. I feel good about
I'm
that,
just
right?
saying that.
So what happens is we overlook that. Now, when he brings the contractors in to do the work,
That man.
they should have known that they needed to pull these permits. Him, I'm not so sure about, right? I mean, he's a pastor coming out of another church where he was renting. So he wasn't in charge of stuff like this, Councilman Martin. So he may have overlooked it. And the contractors, if we want to give them the benefit of the doubt as well, let's just say, oh, we're in a city building. Let's say we're in City Hall. Does the elevator company pull a permit to work on the elevator in City Hall? Do they? I don't know that. But they're in a city building. So they overlooked it, right? We're talking at the end of the day, less than $600, right? Policy and procedure must be followed. So I'm okay with that. We sat down with Melran, with Bon Bayless, right? We even talked to the law department in regards to this. Now, he doesn't have to go in front of the BZA board because we already passed the lease granting him the conditional use. Now, and Council Clerk, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I had him come up the other day and pull the occupancy permit. And it's on file in the office. So he has that. Now, so we're trying to straighten all of this out. So he's working now to go back to the contractors, right? Bring in the proper receipts and separate the totals out. He's going to separate the totals out, even because he said he had a boiler or something that was donated, right? So they got to try to get a number for that, right? The work that was donated. He put a stage in, and the stage was donated materials, donated labor to build a stage. But that also needs a permit. So now his homework assignment is to separate these things out, put dollars amounts, and then he'll come back to get the permit. Right? Now, again, when we negotiated this last year, service department, chief of staff, we're going over the things, we estimated less than 10,000. He came in here and he said, with in-kind services, he spent somewhere less than 30,000. Right, so he asked, he said, because the expenditures were so far over what we thought, right? We're asking for a little leniency on paying the rent. He didn't say he couldn't pay it.
Right, he
Right?
never told me that
Yeah,
either.
he never said he couldn't pay it. He never said it.
In fact, he actually said he could.
He said he could,
Yeah.
but he said he's asking for that because at the end of the day, it is still our building, and he's bringing it up to code.
Yep.
So when we talked about Bayless and Melran, they're going to take care of all that, right? Once he gets it situated, and he's got to get the city water department back out to address
That issue.
the issue in the basement. Now we have a gentleman's agreement about the basement because the basement has some old court documents. You been in the basement, Councilman Martin? It's got some old court documents. So I asked him, I said, listen, you're responsible for it, but can you keep people out of the basement and the court documents that belong to the city? He said yes on a gentleman's agreement. So what I wrote up, because I did the lease in the first addendum to it, I wrote up another addendum, right? And this is something that we'll need to vet here, and then again send it to the law department for, you know, legality and clarity before it's passed. And I think that it's fair to all parties, right? It's a lease basically taking his rent down by 50% over the next 6 months so that he will pay something to the city and he will get some type of an easement for the amount of out-of-pocket expenses he's had.
And
in
so
our
that will
facility.
be, so you want to make an amendment to the lease in lieu of him, I mean, not in lieu, but as long as he does all of these things the proper way, and then you're saying you are willing, you want us to be willing to take a look at that, is that what you're saying?
Yes. Yes. That's it. That's what I'm asking.
So this is contingent upon him doing his part?
Yes. Yes.
And will he be able to produce the fact that the contractors that he had were?
Yes, because a contractor has to pull the permits. So once he gets that total separated out, he'll have the contractors come in based on that total, pay, he'll have the permits.
And these are the same contractors that worked on the building?
He told me they were all certified contractors. That's what he told me.
Because I do know that there was a lot of volunteer work, but as far as the,
Well, you only have to pull permit for major electrical, major plumbing, and then that stage, he said you had to pull a permit. But the
build the
painting,
stage.
so the
Okay.
painting that he had done, the cleaning,
that's not,
you don't have to pull permits for that. But that's still in-kind service, and it still goes towards the total amount of money that he said, because he still have to pay paint and stuff.
I
So
think-
that's what I'm asking for from this council. And keep in mind, he is providing services to the seniors. He does feed,
yeah.
right? And he moved the church over there, so he's got church services. And he's taking
And then
care of
the
our
other
building.
one's from the apartment building.
Yeah, so
I
at the
see.
end
I
of the
mean, I
day,
understand
we
exactly
got a
what
good
you're
building.
saying, but none of this would